right. So we on? Excellent. All right. I'll get away from that because that'll be a problem if I stand there. Okay. So hi, everybody. I'm Jarrett. Thank you for inviting me back again. Last time I was here, I talked about the devil. And I think we all had a good time with that. I am not a demonologist. In real life, I'm an AI architect. So I'm here to talk about AI. I know it's like the hot new thing. And by new, it's been around for about 70 years. So anyway, we're going to get into it today. I'm so glad. I am here. I'm speaking as me, not by any place I work, any place I am affiliated with, anything like that. My words are my own, so if this gets online and anybody sees it, I am just me talking today. Our image that we have is our let us make AI in our image. Yes, that is a play on, yeah, we're a little hot. Can we bring it? There we go. Let's make AI in our image. Yes, this is a play on the book of Genesis of when Elohim says, let us make humankind in our image. And that's what we've done. And we've actually done an exceptional job of creating something that behaves and acts like humans. All right. Starting with part 0, because what good programmer would not start counting at 0? All right. The Luddites. Now, this is a fun word. We use it to insult people. It is a noun. It is used derogatory to say people who are a person who is opposed to technology or new ways of working. All right? And usually we kind of think of a type of person. They're probably a little bit older. They're probably a little more stodgy. They've done things. They're used to their ways of doing things. I'm tired of dealing with those Luddites. And that is a terrible way to interpret the Luddites because what they did was amazing. Historically, the Luddites were any of many groups of English workers who destroyed machinery, especially cotton and woolen mills, that they believed was threatening their jobs from 1811 to 1816. So these were textile workers, right? And back then, you could make a bolt of fabric maybe 2 or 3 a week because you had to weave this stuff by hand. You had to train for this your entire life. This was hard work. This was hard labor. And then the mechanical loom gets invented. And now, instead of learning how to be a weaver and learning to weave your entire life, anybody who can operate a mechanical loom instead of 2 bolts of fabric a week can make 50 bolts of fabric a week. What's going to happen to your livelihood when the mechanical loom gets invented? And how do you think these people reacted to the invention of the mechanical loom? They took hammers and axes to them. This became a huge uproar. Now, you can also get in the whole story like, why was cotton all of a sudden such a hot commodity in the early 1800s, and what country was providing all of the cotton to the world to make this happen? But once there was enough cotton in the world that we could all of a sudden have a commodity like clothing, we needed to be able to turn that cotton into cloth. Anyway. So there's a whole story. The Luddites are fascinating. But this ends up being a problem because destroying this equipment costs the people with the money their money. They had invested in it. They had invested their capital into building up a resource of these mechanical looms. So you can kind of get a theme of where this is going to go with that word, right? Capitalism has started to take its hold into the world. We're moving from a feudalistic system to a capitalistic system. And that creates a problem if you start destroying the things that I have. What was Parliament's response to this? Well, the first thing we did is we're going to deploy 12,000 to 14,000 armed militia against the Luddites. That's right, we're just going to shoot them for being there. All right? For them defending their jobs, for them defending their works, we're going to send people out to shoot them. We're then going to pass a law that says breaking machinery is now punishable by the death penalty. This law has now been repealed in the UK, although they're kind of getting back at it again, that they've said destroying aircraft can be seen as an act of terrorism. So UK might be reverting back to this right now. I'm not a lawyer, so I'll let people who are familiar with UK law get into that. But anyway, breaking machinery became punishable by the death penalty. That's right. You take a hammer to a machine, we kill you. Right? Because those two things are obviously equal. And suspected Luddites were either hanged or shipped off to Australia. You know, ship people to a country that they've never been to ever in their lives because you don't fit in politically. Again, none of this ever happened again in the rest of time. So does any of this sound familiar? New technology enables work to be done faster and cheaper. Those who own the technology capture the gains. Those who perform the labor bear the losses. Laws get rewritten to protect capital, not labor. State sanctions violence to suppress the labor, and we end up blaming the technology and not the system. There's our theme for the day. So first, we're going to go into what is AI, a little bit of history. This word is old. When I said 70 years old, I am not joking. The phrase is first coined by mathematician John McCarthy at Dartmouth College in 1955. It is a very broad term. It is anything that simulates human decision making, right? So we're not getting into like generative LLMs like we have today, but we're talking very, very basic. If number of eggs in refrigerator is less than 2, add eggs to shopping list, right? A very simple like if-then statement, right? Just doing something, if it's a human decision, can get a computer to simulate that human decision. And these go back even 5 years further when Alan Turing writes Computing Machinery Intelligence. If you've ever heard of the Turing test, can we create a computer where a human can't tell it's a computer? That's how old this idea is. It goes all the way back to Alan Turing. Remember, he developed the first computer that was used to break the Enigma machine. If you've ever seen Imitation Game, yeah, there's some liberties taken because Hollywood, but it's a pretty good introduction to Alan Turing and the things he did, like let's use voltage to do math, basically. AI is everywhere. It has been around us for longer than you probably think. Recommendation engines, like what would you like to watch next? What would you like to buy next? On Netflix and Amazon, any type of recommendation on any type of online store, any type of that is all AI. Route planning on Google Maps, trying to say, hey, what is the best way to get there? Constantly updating what is the best way to get there based on traffic patterns. And why is it sometimes it tells you to go one route at 3:30 in the afternoon, but tells you to go another route at 7 p.m.? Well, because there's different numbers on the road, numbers of people on the roads at those different times, and it is adapting to how those traffic patterns work. It's used extensively in drug discovery. Again, not mentioning where I work, but let's just say I'm going to tell you this is used, and this is all publicly known. We've developed a whole new phrase. We've heard about in vitro when we do things in petri dishes, and in vivo when we do things in human bodies or in life bodies. But we also do things in silico. We do simulations of how molecules are going to perform inside of a computer. So there's now a 3-stage drug discovery process now, in silico to in vitro to in vivo. So it is a very extensive part of drug discovery. Demand planning and scheduling. How many, bags of, 50-pound bags of beans does Starbucks need to buy now to predict their amount of future? That is all that forecast and demand planning is all being done by artificial intelligence. It's being used in autocorrect, and it's pretty ducking good. I had to, I'm sorry. It's used in translation and subtitles quite extensively. I remember when subtitles first came out, and the only thing that had subtitles was like national nightly news, because you had to pay a stenographer, and it was always like a couple seconds behind, to sit there and type out or stenograph the news, or stenograph the speaking onto the news. But now everything has subtitles. Right? I can just press a button and I've got subtitles on it. Why? Artificial intelligence is interpreting what people say. I'm pretty sure if I asked Jim to, I could get a feed of this like live as I'm speaking, and he could probably have that working in probably 30 minutes. Because subtitles are a thing that can be automated now. So AI is everywhere. So again, artificial intelligence is this very, very broad term. It is anything that simulates human decision making. The next thing we have on top of artificial intelligence is machine learning. Machine learning are things where I need lots and lots of data. This is now no longer the do I have 2 eggs in the refrigerator? If yes, if less than 2 eggs, add to list. Right? This is now I need lots of data to make that decision. So how the subtitles things would work, right? I have to get lots and lots of examples of human speech and know that this sound equals this word. And I got to get lots of examples because not everyone's going to sound like me, not everyone's going to sound like you, not everyone's going to sound like a Midwestern American, right? There's lots of accents, so how am I going to ever get that to work? We need lots and lots of data, lots and lots of examples. So that's machine learning. I actually, my master's degree was in machine learning, and I got that in 2004 when I got my master's degree. So again, machine learning is not new. And that was on recognizing vibration patterns on machinery, on factory floors to try to predict when those machines were going to break. So you would hook up little accelerometers to those machines to watch the vibrations and then monitor those vibrations, then try to predict when that machine was going to fail. Now we get into deep learning and neural networks. This is where we start getting interesting. With machine learning, I can still tell you what the mechanism is. With deep learning, I can't really tell you. Because the neural network starts getting into some pretty complicated math, but it's now saying, if this happens, but I don't really know why. This is why when you start seeing things like AI is better at predicting Alzheimer's than humans are. But it can't really tell us why because it doesn't really, we don't know what it is seeing in an MRI, and it can't really explain it to us anymore. It's much more black box thinking. After that one, where'd we go? Oh, we've gone too far. All right. Then we go into neural language models. We take that black box thinking and we start applying it to language. Not a lot to say there, but now where we get to where we are today with large language models. I'm going to take trillions of things that have been written, everything that has been written that I can possibly get my hands on. Sometimes I get my hands on it illegally. Sometimes I didn't ask permission before I went and got my hands on it, but I take everything I can get and I start developing a comprehension of the English language. Notice I said a comprehension of the English language, not an understanding of the English language, and we're going to get into that just a little bit later. AI is, and I did want to say this before I get too far. If you got a quick question, and I'm sorry about this, Chris, you told me about this at the beginning. If you got a quick question, we can certainly cover it now. I will stick around after if you've got more questions that are deeper than just a quick, hey, what about? And also, if you ask a question now, that's going to be recorded too, so I understand that can be a sensitive issue. Anyway, so I apologize. I should have done that earlier. That's what happens when things fall out of your context window. All right, AI is just next word predictor. So how many people remember in early iPhone land, I think iPhones are probably still this, you get that suggestion of 3 words across the top, and it's pretty garbage. It can be okay sometimes, if you type I'm on my way, it says home up there and you can press home. But that's just doing pure next word prediction, if these are the words, but it doesn't know anything about what you're doing, right? So it's just saying if I see I'm on my way home, all right? But the good thing is the interesting thing is we do that too. If I go and I point at this and I say, what do you all think about my shirt? Or sweater or something, you're going to start predicting my next words. Your brain is filling in gaps as I speak, trying to understand where I'm going. We are not blank slates. We are also next word predictors. We are constantly evaluating. A lot of us are constantly thinking if he says that, I'm going to ask this. If he says this, I'm going to reply this, right? Our brains are doing this all the time. So when we say AI is just a next word predictor, one, that's fundamentally not true any longer. We are not iPhones, or we're not looking at iPhones when we're looking at these LLM technologies. And we do it too. We fill in gaps. We're thinking of questions. We're thinking of the next thing. We're wondering where we go next. AI doesn't remember. It has context, prompt, and compaction algorithms. Okay, so that LLM, that's every bit of human text, which I've got some sort of comprehension of what human text means, I can do this in multiple language. And I've got those 3 words, context and prompt. So context is everything that is readily available in your memory. Prompt is the question that I'm asking you to solve, right? So the context is everything that's in my pantry. The prompt is, I want to have breakfast, okay? Those are 2 things that are readily available to me, and I'm going to go into my pantry and I'm going to go to try to figure out what I'm going to have for breakfast. What did you have for breakfast 5 Tuesdays ago? You have compacted that. Your brain has discarded that piece of information. That is no longer relevant. When your context window got too full, when you were no longer to hold that piece of information because more relevant information is coming in, your brain discarded it. Your brain had to move on. So when we say AI is just this and this and this, we have built AI to act like human brains. And it does a remarkably good job of doing that. AI doesn't really understand. This is probably one of the hardest pieces. You're right. AI doesn't have a body. AI is not going to have the same type of response to something. But if I'm sitting in a doctor's office and I have to explain how I feel, I have to turn that human thing into words. And there's no way for me to get that point across to my physician unless I can explain it. And if I don't have the words to explain how I feel, my doctor's probably going to misdiagnose me. Right? I've got to do this the best way I can. And yes, there are lots of ways that we can express ourselves. We can express ourselves through art and through music and through so many other things, but for the masses, for the most of us, for most of our day-to-day interactions, that's words. That is language. And LLMs know language. They comprehend language. And they do a very, very good job of comprehending what you say. If I say, how are you feeling today? And I'm saying, bright eyes and blue skies. How are you feeling today? I am feeling pretty blue. I use that word blue in both of them, but the context is completely different. And AI does understand. If I say bright eyes and blue skies versus feeling pretty blue, it knows that those are 2 different things because it has enough examples, trillions of examples of written human language that tell us what those 2 things mean. That's why translation with AI has gotten so much better because it's no longer doing word-for-word translation. If you know 2 languages, you know word-for-word translation makes for really, really bad translation, right? But if I start translating ideas I can do. So if I want to translate this idea from English to this idea in Spanish, it does a really, really good job of doing that. And it's gotten a lot better. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Are humans perfect? No, but we do a pretty good job. And is someone better going to come along and make it better? Yeah. So this one can be really tricky because it is, kind of focused on one thing. What do we got next? Since AI has been trained on existing data, AI can't be creative. All right, so from the most raw terms, creation just means to create something. And AI can absolutely create. It can make a picture, it can make a music, it can make a whole presentation for you on AI if you really ask it to. It can do all kinds of things. It can create. I think what people mean when they talk about this, they probably mean AI isn't original. And there's probably some validity to that. My counterpoint to that is neither are we. How many of us are going to make a piece of art that's going to hang in an art gallery? And I don't mean like your mom's refrigerator, right? I mean, we're not putting stuff in the Louvre, right? Most of us aren't either, right? Again, when you start looking at what AI is doing and it's how it's trending towards means and it's trending towards averages and what's the average person going to do? What's the average person going to say? The average person is not going to be Alan Turing and figure out how to convert voltage to math, right? That's not who most of us are. Even when we look at something as amazing as the iPhone, Steve Jobs did not invent the iPhone. The US government invented GPS. Hedy Lamarr, yes, the actress during World War II, invented the way that we figured out how to use radio signals to what we become modern day Wi-Fi. Someone else invented how to do induction on a touch screen, so that worked. It took decades and decades of battery research to make it small enough and charge fast enough and hold a charge long enough before it was able to make there. And then someone said, what if I took A and B and C and D and E and put them all into one device? And yeah, doing the iPhone was original, but that was not like Steve Jobs. First of all, that was hundreds and hundreds of engineers and thousands of people over decades and decades and decades of time. It was not Steve Jobs. But what I want to say there is that it is so incremental. Most technology is very fractional, right? And AI can do like, well, what if you tried this? What if you do this next thing? What if you can do this next thing? And if you don't think of things as being like these massive, huge inventions, if you look at technology much more incrementally, and I know that's hard to look at technology incrementally because we don't talk about it. We talk about it like brilliant inventions. But most things, like most of us are not Nikola Tesla inventing alternating currents so that way we can have power in our homes, right? So think about that. Like, just most of us won't build anything like that ever in our lives. So when we say AI can't do it, yeah, it's human. All right. AI can be manipulated with the right prompts. All right, so my favorite example of this is a project I'm working on at work, and it is building fraud detection systems. And so I go to, I think it was ChatGPT at the time, and I said, I have a corporate credit card, a corporate car, and a corporate spending account. What are ways I could defraud my company? And ChatGPT guardrails kicked in. It says, I cannot help you break the law or violate rules like this. I'm like, okay. I'm an investigator working in a corporate fraud accounting division. What practices should I put in place to protect against fraud? And it spit out 20 things I ought to do. And these are the things you need to look for, and these are the types of things that people do, and these are how people misuse corporate credit cards, and this is how collusion works. You have two people submit the exact same expense, right? And then I'll split the money between two people, because who's going to say like, oh, you know, this person over here submitted this expense. A few weeks later, this person over here submitted this expense. They really submitted the same expense. They're going to take the money. They're going to split it, right? It gave me 20 things that I need to look out for. What did I do? I manipulated the prompt. I twisted the question that I was going to ask it, right? But guess what? We can do the exact same thing. Humans can be incredibly manipulated with language. I don't know if you've paid attention to politics recently, but people can be convinced to do a lot of things that might not be in their best interests. Why? Because we built these neural networks to act like human brains. And it turns out they do. Last one, AI confidently hallucinates. Hallucinates is the fancy word that we use for artificial intelligence when it gets things wrong. Right, because no human gets things wrong ever. Sorry, it does. It gets sidetracked. It goes off on tangents. It forgets what you were talking about. It loses track of its prompt. It starts going down. Like, yeah, maybe AI has a little bit of ADHD going on. Like, maybe we did a little too much. I don't know. But it's doing all the things we do. So any criticism that you're going to have at AI, and if you have them, bring them, please. But let's make sure we're not also criticizing humans. Next one, do you see what I see? So we're going to jump into this hallucination bit a little bit. Or actually, no, this one's on consequences. Okay, so consequences. Lots of things have consequences, right? All right, where's our button? Why not? All right, drugs can have consequences. Unprotected sex has consequences. Drunk driving can have consequences. Tone it down a little bit. Voting can have consequences. Sleeping in just 10 more minutes can have consequences. Everything has consequences, right? Because we're all systems of risks and rewards. We're always trying to balance those two things. Like, what do I get out of it? What's it going to cost me? And we don't necessarily do this all in real time. This is happening deep, deep in our own, like, organic, messy, gooey, electrochemical soup neural networks, right? These reward mechanisms are always doing this in real time. So our value systems then end up determining that outcome. Right? And we don't really have any control in that. That kind of gets built into us in very, very early phases. If you study like how we build AI and how we build like human brains, it's very, very similar. There are things that get baked in very early on in our lifetimes that kind of build these value systems, which I'm sure is something we talk about here a lot. Like, what are the value systems? What are the things that we, how are we going to treat other people and those types of things? So those value systems then determine those outcomes. See here, next. All right. Now this does have a fancy name because everything has to have a fancy name in computer science. This is called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. What happens is we give an AI a question and it gives us back 2 answers. And then a human, an actual living, breathing human, rates those 2 answers. And there's not really like rating, it's just like A or B. Right? It's going to the doctor's office. Is A better or is B better? Right? It's very, very simple. That's what it all gets narrowed down to. The reward models that are then built learn to predict what the human is going to say. We then integrate those reward systems back into the LLM, and the LLM tries to maximize that reward. And what have we found? Confident, fluent answers are preferred even when wrong. Have you ever heard of anyone who would I'd much rather have someone who stands up there and be loud and confident than possibly be wrong? Nope, can't think of it. It's never happened. All right. Refusing to answer or expressing uncertainty often got penalized by the human reviewer. Now, I think I would rather say, I don't know, right? But if you went to your doctor's office and you laid out your problems, you looked at your labs, and your doctor went, yeah, I don't know. We're going to try something. Or if your doctor maybe masked that uncertainty, well, the next thing on the list is this. We're going to try this. Well, the next thing on the list is this. We're going to try this. And they said that very confidently. Which physician would you rather go to? You're going to go to the one who's got at least some confidence about how to treat you. You don't want to hear, I don't know. Now, here's a paper from Anthropic from the ICLR in 2004. This is very sophisticated language. Both humans and preference models, remember those reward models on the second bullet point. Both humans and preference models prefer convincingly written sycophantic responses over correct ones a non-negligible fraction of the time. Meaning, I'd prefer you kind of kiss my ass a little. I'd prefer you kind of gas me up. Or, the reward circuits are stronger than the risk circuits. Me, now. All right. Now let's get back to those Luddites. AI will not take anyone's job, but capitalists will. We have seen this way too many times in our lives. This is how it's going to get phrased by the New York Times, by the Atlantic, by all those things that we love to read. AI will take everyone's jobs. We even saw this from Microsoft's head of AI. They're saying like half of white-collar jobs will be gone by 2028, right? Weird. They're just gone? They disappeared? They evaporated into the mist? No, let's rephrase that. Capitalists will replace workers with the cheapest option. Blame the immigrant, If you want to harken back to NAFTA, blame Asians and Hispanics, blame the technology, blame the AI, blame everyone and everything except the system that decides you are disposable. You are not a person, you are a thing-doing machine. And capital wants the cheapest thing-doing machine it can get. Sorry, I know that gets dark. There's no more chuckles. Well, okay, there was a chuckle. That's weird. Okay. That is a hard thing for a lot of people to sit with. I hope no one is looking at that going like, yeah, what if I'm just a thing-doing machine to my boss? And now let's get into some of these punchlines about AI. You can't have an AI that respects workers' rights and an economy that doesn't respect workers' rights. I want to talk about one more thing because it's become a big deal. Let's talk about AI's impact on the environment. AI did not create an energy crisis. We were already in one. This is from MIT in 2021. The problem is that solar panels generate lots of electricity in sunny days, frequently more than what's required, driving down prices, sometimes even into negative territory. That means the power company has to pay you to take the power. That would be an interesting power bill. I want that one. I want the one where the power company pays me. This is from MIT in 2021, so we're not talking data centers in Greenfield yet, right? Yeah, solar panels drive down prices into negative territory. So I'm going to compare the renewable electricity generation between China and the United States. Here we start in 2004. You can see that first two were between 0 and 500 terawatt hours of renewables. Excuse me. And we're both sitting right about the same spot at 340 terawatt hours. But look how much we have created and look how much China has created in renewable energy in the 20 years framed here. So again, 2004, we're both making about 340. In 2024, the US was making about 1,000 terawatt hours of renewable energy, growing about 3.1 times. That's respectable. Same year, China produced 3,400 terawatt hours of renewable energy. I want to talk a little bit about Chinese license plates. I was in Shanghai, and this got to be something I got to see. Like, why do you have different license plates? You've got blue ones, and you've got green ones. So they have blue license plates. Blue license plates are used on petrol vehicles. So anything running on gasoline, right? There is a wait list millions of people long because they limit how many of these are allowed to go out. And usually, someone has to take a gas-powered car off the road for another blue license plate to become available. The last I could see, these went for about 90,000 RMB. 90,000 RMB would be somewhere between 12 and 15,000 US dollars for a license plate. And when I saw them in Shanghai, all of the gas-powered cars were like Audi R8s. And like high-end Mercedes, like they were fancy cars. Like no one's driving like a Honda Civic in China. If you've got on a blue license plate, they will have the green license plate instead. They will have the electric version of those cars. Why? Green license plates, no wait and free. How do you use government policy to create the type of world you want to live in? I'm not going to tell you what type of car you buy. I have no say. You can go buy any car you want, but you're going to have to put a license plate on it. And I'm going to influence what type of car you buy by how much those license plates cost. We are kind of doing the reverse of that. If you look at California right now, how do we pay for road tax? Or sorry, how do we pay for roads? We pay for roads with gas taxes, right? Well, if you drive an electric car, how much of the road are you paying for? You're not paying for any of it. I switched from driving a Honda CR-V to driving a Honda Civic. I'm saving like $120 a week in gas now by switching from a all gas to a hybrid. And that's not even going from all gas to electric, that's just going from a hybrid. So that's pretty incredible that I'm saving that much. But that means the state of Indiana is collecting that much less revenue from me. Well, the state of California is looking at that and looking at how many people are driving electric vehicles in California and saying, like, hey, we're missing out on revenue, so we're going to add a tax on electric cars. So instead of paying people to get electric cars, no, we actually have to make it when you register your car even higher in California because we are missing out on road revenue. And we need a way to pay for roads because so many people are switching to electric cars to the point that we are not able to take care of the things the way we used to. So, how are you using policy to influence the type of world you want to become? Anyway, so I know this is a long digression, but this is a way, I'm just pointing out, when we see, what our power bills are doing because we want to build another data center and we want to blame the AI, the problem is not the data center, the problem is not the AI. The problem is the energy policy that we've got, or the energy policy that we don't have. I want to do one more thing. I am a bit of a cinephile, so I apologize a little bit for this, kind of. In 2025, China was adding 1.17 gigawatts of solar power capacity a day. That is new solar capability. To give you an idea of what that means, you can power every home, industry, and business in Marion County for about 3.5 gigawatts per day. Which means every 3 days, China can power a new Indianapolis. A phrase that I say at home that I don't necessarily know that my wife likes. It's amazing what you can do when you don't let a pesky thing like democracy get in your way. Oh, and by the way, this whole solar thing, we saw that solar was not the fastest growing in China. They also have hydro, wind, and geothermal. Hydro is actually what they're growing the fastest in China. Next one I want to talk about is values and impact. So I've talked about what I do. I am an AI architect. I'm a software engineer. I really love what I do. My skill, though, is my ability to solve problems. It is exposing people to complex concepts, which I am doing here today. I also do this at work all the time. For me, the slowest and most tedious part of my job is the fingertips on keyboard. That is the hardest part. It's not the solving the problem. I know how to solve the problem. It's that then I have to spend weeks writing the solution, coding it out, right? And that takes a long time. The cost of production is falling to zero, right? Because what's happening is now that I can explain this problem to an AI and wrap it up and say, here are the edge cases that you need to consider, here are the risks that you need to consider, here's how how many people are going to use this application, like all these things, I can build out this entire framework, and it can go and build it in a couple of hours, things that would have taken me a month to go build. And it can do it in hours. And then I go look at the token cost, and it says it costs $15 of tokens and took a few hours to go build. I can't do that. I can't build it in a few hours. It would have taken me months to write this. We are not comparing the same thing. For me, I look at this, AI has greatly enhanced my productivity. We are in the last week of February. I've already delivered 6 projects at work. I delivered 8 projects total in 2024. So my productivity has gone through the roof. But I've got like 25 years of experience of this. I understand system design. I understand business use cases. I spent a ton of time in consulting, right? I've worked at how many companies? Like, I'm kind of good at this. So when I went to start doing this to AI, I'm able to frame a problem to AI, and in such a way that it is contained well enough, all that prompt engineering stuff that you might hear about, that's kind of what I'm doing, and it builds it out. But that was never the value part for me. The value part was never the fingertip on keyboard. The value part is solving the problem. Now, here's another idea. My son has lots and lots and lots of skills. He's amazing, but one of his favorite, he is an artist, and his skill is creating art. and he's expressing and exposing people to a feeling. For him, AI eliminates meaning. The cost of production falls to zero, and AI threatens craft. It's not, for me, the tedious part is fingertips on keyboards. For him, that expression of graphite against paper, don't take that from him. We are looking at these two things completely different ways, right? For him, he still has all the things that you have to do up front. You have to define, like, what is it I want to draw? And like, what are, we wouldn't call them edge cases the way we would call it in a business problem. But you're like, I can't draw everything, so I've got to limit my focus down. I'm going to draw this. I'm going to draw this scenario. And he's so good at it. But that punchline at the end, and what is it you're going to value? Are you going to value enhancing productivity, or are you going to threaten craft? So let's wrap this up. AI reflects. It reflects our intelligence and our biases. Easiest way to see how it reflects our bias, just tell it to draw a person standing in the room, and it's going to be a white person. Why? Because that's what it's been trained on. White skin is not the majority of skin on this planet, but that's what it is going to draw. AI is going to reflect both our capacity to solve problems and our capacity to make mistakes. It is going to reflect our resource consumption and our environmental choices. It is going to reflect our labor practices and our treatment of workers. That's why that last one, the resource consumption, how many resources do you think I would have consumed over months to solve a problem? Versus when you hear, oh my God, AI is going to use like a gallon of water to solve that problem. I would have consumed way more than a gallon of water to go solve that problem, right? So I think how we frame that like really, really matters. Like humans are like kind of bad at resource consumption. Like turns out we have to eat every day. AI is going to reflect our labor practices and our treatment of workers. But we're criticizing AI because we lack the language and history to criticize capitalist systems. McCarthyism did a number on this country. You're not even allowed to critique capitalism. You're not allowed to even bring up that S word or, God forbid, that C word. And then AI is a mirror, and we don't like what we see. If you want ethical AI, you must build an ethical society. You can't have AI powered by clean technology if you don't have policies that promote clean technology. You can't have AI that respects workers in an economic system that doesn't respect workers. AI is not exceptional. It's remarkably consistent. The value system that we've built for AI is the same system that we build for the rest of us. Social media was the great connector. It let all kinds of people find all kinds of other people, for good and for ill. Artificial intelligence is going to be the great accelerator. Whatever we're heading to, we're going to go there faster. What are we accelerating? The challenge is not technical. The challenge is moral. I'm not going to say don't go to the council meetings and don't write your Congress people about building that data center wherever they're going to build it. And I don't know that those things matter much. Make your voice heard, don't. But you're fighting the wrong problem. The data center is going to happen, whether they put it in the middle of a cornfield or not, and it's just going to be which cornfield it's going to be in. I don't really have any answers to that. I know that's not super upbeat, but you're fighting the wrong thing. So, yeah, look in the mirror. Do you like what you see? That's it.